Scripture, and living for the Lord. I mean, that has to be hard at a secular university like UTD.
I was
Uh,
actually really, really lucky. So whenever I first came to UTD, I walked to this thing to ask people to show me where my classes were, and it was this ministry called Focus. And
okay,
Focus is probably like the most intentional ministry I've been part of. And I was part of Bible studies all the time. I don't know.
good.
My college has experience has not really been like, I guess, a typical college experience. It's just Bible study, random friends, eating food. It's just
Okay.
same as high school.
Yeah, I mean, it's high school on a much larger scale, and yeah, lots going on. So, man, I'm just so proud of you to get that degree, and I'm excited to see what lies next for you. And I will make it a matter of prayer. I know God's going to lead you and guide you, but I'm just going to pray that He'll give you clarity.
Absolutely. And one of my goals this year is to ask more questions to the people who I feel like have impacted my life. I think I said this last time, low-key repeating the same thing. And I told myself I was going to reread this from eighth grade.
Thank you. Oh, that's so cool, man, that you still have that. That,
Of
that makes my
course.
heart feel good.
Of course. I just,
Every teenager needs to read that book. I mean, and really, if I were going to add, I would add an addendum to it, and that would make it the seven most important decisions you'll ever make. And the last one would be, what are you going to do with Jesus Christ?
oh, for sure. Oh, for
But
sure.
because you can't do that in public school. But I mean, that's the ultimate decision. I was sadly I had to go to a funeral for a former student this week.
Sorry about that.
Man, thank you. I love him so much. Um, his name was Kendall Jackson, and he was MHS class of 2013. He had a younger brother named Keenan Jackson, and Keenan, he was gone by the time you even got there. So Keenan graduated college and works for Raytheon, which is
I
a
know where
big.
Raytheon is.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big company. It's a major player. He has a really good job. But Kendall graduated in 2013. He was older. He was, 30, pushing 31. He was in the Air Force, and everything was really hush hush. So I'm afraid that it was a suicide.
Mm,
There are a lot of those in the military.
yeah.
And so it was heartbreaking. But the reason I tell you this, I was talking to another young man from that same class, 2013, named Malcolm Muckleroy. I mean, just love him. I mean, just like you, he's just one of those kids I bonded with. And so, he was telling me about what he's doing, because I always want to know what you guys are doing and how you're doing. And I could tell he wasn't really enjoying. He's a paramedic down in Navarro County near Corsicana.
Yeah.
I could tell that he wasn't really enjoying it. Yeah, I was like, I could tell he's not real passionate about it. And I said, well, man, um, I just want to encourage you. The only thing, and I knew he's a believer, but there's a difference between being a believer and a follower,
Absolutely.
because even the demons believe in Jesus, and they tremble. That's from Scripture.
Sure.
I mean, it's not good enough just to believe, oh yeah, well, Jesus is real. We got to pursue Him. And I encouraged Malcolm to do that, and he said, well, I'm going to tell you what I'm really passionate about. I want to go into ministry. So it made me feel so good to see him living for God. For him, it makes me feel great to see you guys that are pursuing Christ.
I went
So,
to December 16th. I went to Colton's wedding. Do you know, remember Colton Kyle?
oh yeah,
I remember Carrie Scott.
oh, I love them both.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they got married
yeah. I knew they
December
were
16th.
engaged. I didn't know when the wedding was.
Yeah, the wedding was 2 days before my graduation,
Oh, cool.
and just like seeing them grow, and we were talking about Walnut Grove and how, again, I want to honor the influential moments in my life, and also like the people who have poured so much into me. And I think adjacent, how much you've poured into me has literally changed my life. But we were talking about Walnut Grove, and they were talking about how they met in eighth grade, and Carrie, they met in seventh grade. Carrie had just moved to Midlothian in
Yeah, I
seventh
remember when
grade.
she came new, and I remember Colton. I think he was there. Was he there seventh and eighth, or just eighth?
No, I think he was there seventh and eighth.
Okay.
Yeah, because I moved in eighth grade, and that's when I had class with all these people, and we all
Okay.
became friends in eighth grade. But even SEALs, I mean, I was talking to even the Howard twins about eighth grade.
Yeah.
Luke and Jake, they're
Yeah.
in high school. They used to talk to me all the time about how one of their goals is to be like a youth minister, and Luke and Jake are ministers at this. Oh, they said they saw you at this church in Cedar Hill, First Baptist Cedar Hill.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know
I,
if you remember the Howard twins.
I remember them both. I can see their faces. Yeah. I mean, I just, but I can't remember the last time I saw them.
Yeah, they said you were doing like support raising for Mentors Care. At
That's right.
yeah, and we're talking. I don't know. Eighth grade, all these influential moments in our lives, right? I think the children's development, a child begins to know themselves. I think like at 12 years old or like actualization. But
Yeah.
even then, there's so much that we can't comprehend. I
Yeah.
told so the youth minister at Stonegate, his name is Zach. His name is Zach Reynolds, and I told him like I'm just graduated. I would love to come back and be of help and whatnot. And they have me as a student leader for eighth graders. And it's
Great.
like the sermon that Zach gave last night. I was like, this is packed. But at eighth grade, was I even truly like there to even like even this book? As I was before we were gonna talk today, I was like, okay, I'm gonna review back of some of my old answers, still just look back where I'm at from these answers and these different things and whatnot. So I don't even know if my mind was set on the right things or even
Sure.
mature enough to even know what I'm even talking about or even I don't even know self-aware, intelligent. I don't know even what the right word is, but there's a lot of things that we think we know or we're digesting, but we're not even close. We're
Right.
just tasting nibbles of it, and
Sure.
that's what like Seals was. Like, what gave you the audacity to like say, teens, we should read this book,
Yeah.
and that's my question. What gave you the audacity to be like, okay, I want to make these young men into young men?
Well, that goes back to what I was just telling you about. There was a group of young men who came through Walnut Grove and they graduated. So it would have been there around 2007 to 2009. And then they transitioned to, or they would have been there till around probably 2007 to 2010, 2008 to 2010. And I'll name, it was Kendall Jackson, the young man I told you about that sadly passed away. It was Kendall Jackson. It was Malcolm McElroy. It was a young man named Will Marks. It was these two twins named Justin Seaton and Dustin Seaton. There was just the most exceptional, as far as a group. I would put you right up there with them. But as far as a group,
It's okay, you don't have to.
they, I would put you right up there with them as far as character and potential and leadership. But they were like the defenders of Walnut Grove. They were these big football players and they loved the school. And we had conversations with them. I mean, and they were the guys who, if a kid threw food in the cafeteria, or if a kid was cussing, they would say, "Hey, man, we don't do that." And they just did that because they bought into what we were trying to do, which is have an
Absolutely.
awesome school. And so we began to encourage them, "Hey, keep doing that, man." And so they did. But we didn't have a name for the group. And when they left, it left a huge void in the school. We didn't. The next group was my daughter's class, and they were good, but we didn't have those leaders like that. Uh, and so I was like, you know what, we gotta start fostering leaders, because in most schools the kids are following the kids who are cussing out teachers and fighting,
Facts.
selling weed, because those are the cool
Cool
things.
kids.
Yeah, but they're not. They're not. I mean, I'll give you an example of of a kid who came through Walnut Grove, and his name's William. He was older than the other kids. He had been retained, and he was just a rough kid. I mean, he just constantly made the decision, I'm going to do whatever I want to do. And so, and he was bigger than the other kids. He was a good athlete, but he was in trouble all the time. And I remember talking to a kid named Brian Blair, and I said, why do y'all follow him? And they said, because he's cool. And I ran into Brian Blair as an adult, and I asked him, "Hey, man, how cool is William now?" He said, "Not very."
Oh, what does he
Uh,
do if you don't mind me asking? How did he
uh,
turn out? No way.
William has been he's struggled. I ran into him at church, gave him a hug, probably 5 years ago. He came to the church that I go to. He's had a rough time. I mean, he's had some arrests, been arrested, struggling to find his way, because really he threw away a gift that was given to him, and so that was really the drive behind SEALs, is to foster positive leaders in the school. And so I thought, what would be cool? Well, the Navy SEALs are the baddest of the bad, So how could we? And Chris Kyle, Colton's dad,
Absolutely.
his book had just come out, and sadly, we had a chance to have him speak at the Veterans Day Assembly at Walnut Grove,
Was it
and
recorded?
we had an opportunity to have him, and the assistant principal at the time, Mr. Jaffe, I don't think you had him. He was like, "Man, I just can't fit it into the agenda." And I don't know who Chris Kyle. I knew he was a SEAL. I knew he was a sniper. And as I think back, the movie had not come out, and the book was about to come out, but we didn't really know much about him, other than the fact that he went to Midlothian High School and he was a Navy SEAL and a sniper. So we turned down the opportunity. We said we're not going to have him.
Oh wow.
But as he became more and more famous for his work, to protect our country, I decided, SEALs, how can we do this? And the acronym came to me: service, education, attitude, and leadership. And so we did that because of those kids like Kendall Jackson and Malcolm McElroy and Will Marks and the Seton brothers, to foster positive leaders in the school.
Yeah.
And it makes me really sad to see that they don't do that at Walnut Grove anymore.
Oh really?
No, they don't.
Who's the principal? If you still.
It's Miss Woolery.
Okay. Okay. Huh.
Yeah.
Dang.
So, yeah, it makes me sad, but it is, it's okay. I mean, I'm sure they're fostering leaders in other ways, but
Absolutely.
I was, I want to tell you this, and I know I told you this when you were in the 8th grade, that you're the only new kid I ever put in SEALs.
Which is crazy because I just moved to Midlothian, and I remember even like people were telling me like they've wanted to be in SEALs since like 6th and 7th grade and whatnot, and I was like, what made you even want to put me in SEALs?
Because I saw greatness, I saw leadership, I saw the potential that you're now living up to when you were in middle school. This kid is crazy intelligent. He's crazy articulate. He's so likable. I mean, he's the kind of guy that's going to do great things as an adult. And I mean, you already have. And I mean, you're just scratching the surface of what you're going to be doing and very soon. So
I appreciate it. I appreciate
no, I mean, you were the only new student that we put in SEALs, and I'm glad to hear you say that was the goal, to make the 6th and 7th graders want to do well, because the impact of SEALs, you got the 8th graders, but then you got those 7th and 6th graders who are like, okay, I know what this is, and I know I've got to be a good student and a good leader to be invited to be in it.
Yeah.
So you're impacting the whole school, because they wanted. I remember the day I would make the announcement. It was always in September. I would come on the PA, and I would say, "Hey, students and teachers, pardon this interruption. Please, would you please send the following young men to the cafeteria?" And everybody knew what was about to be. It was the SEALs invitation. And when I call those names, I know this for a fact was happening. Those boys were listening for their names,
Oh yeah.
And I had boys come to me afterwards. I had some come to me tearing up. You didn't call my name for SEALs to invite me. I was like, with some of them, man, I just couldn't do it. I mean, they were just so disruptive. But most of them, I would say, you know what? If you want to do it, you come on. We'll let you in. So
Again, I think SEALs was so impactful because of the conversations we had, right? This is a really, really good book to read. And I've even recommended it to my friends. And I've read I also read the 7 Habits of Highly Effective Leaders by Sean Covey.
yeah.
The other book he wrote.
He did a Zoom with us when you were in 8th grade, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
He did.
He was always so. I mean, it was hard to get a hold of him. He He's the CEO of a multi-million dollar publishing company. It's Franklin Covey Publishing. They're a big time publisher.
Yeah,
So I had to call the home office and wait on hold and I finally got to his assistant, and she got me connected to him. And he was so kind, to give us that 30 minutes every school year. Um,
that was really good, and I think even stuff like that, we take it for granted, right? Because even like, oh, it's somewhere in my room, the coin thingy that Colton's mom gave us when she
yeah,
came and spoke about Chris,
yeah,
and
yeah,
that is probably still a conversation I still remember. As I've talked
mhm,
to Colton's mom over the years, it's just like I remember her talking about the type of man her husband was, and even
yeah,
like I think it says volumes for somebody to speak about you, right?
yeah, absolutely.
Obviously, like you speaking about yourself is great, but then people noticing things about your character, like there's things people see that you will never see, and that's just like so powerful.
Yeah.
So super blessed, super
Think
blessed.
about you try to think about it's morbid, but and I'm way closer to it than you are. But you think about your own funeral and what. First of all, it's about what do you want Jesus to say to you when you come face to face with Him. And I think He's going to say, "Enter in, my good and faithful servant." But I think He might elaborate a little bit. You loved other people. You loved children. Hopefully, to me, He'll say, "Yeah, you loved kids, and you served other people very well." And that's what we work for. But you also think about your own funeral. What are they going to say about me? And you want it to be great things. And you want to leave a legacy to where your kid. I only have one child. And she's 29, but you want them to be so proud of
The man
when
you
they
were.
when they talk about you, and
That
so you want your spouse to be proud when that day happens for you as well. So
I think I've always, because of how I was raised and the people around me, they've always like made us focus on impact, right?
mhm,
Life is about us, but at the same time, it's about what you leave behind, right? Because at the
yeah,
end of the day, we're just like sand. We are fickle. We will disappear. We will. Life is gonna happen, and like you said, it's morbid, but I do think about death a lot. Probably more than I think a 21.
I always have. I
Me
mean,
too. Like when I talk to my mom, she doesn't like it because it's just one day I will die. So it's like, okay, what can I do today? What can I do to actually impact the people around me? Because at the end of
yeah,
the day, one of my mentors I met in OU, he always talks about like everything is gonna burn. It's about the souls of men of the Word of God,
yeah,
and that's my biggest thing. And like I think that's what middle school, high school, the Bible has just really made me focus on like people. At the end of
sure,
the day, no matter what work reality I'm dealing with on this earth or whatever, I don't want to lose sight of the person right in front of me. I want to be present.
absolutely,
Because if we lose that, it's we're not gonna remember the. I don't remember a single, not a single, but I don't remember a lot of the educational content we did in eighth grade, right?
yeah,
But I remember the impact of the teachers. I remember Miss Richmond. I remembered. I don't remember the social studies teacher I had, but she was really really cool. I remember our conversations. I remember stuff around, and that's what we truly truly remember. Remember the people who live impact in the moments. I remember one time you said that after eighth grade the pep rallies get lame,
yeah,
which is true.
yeah, yeah. They get lame. I mean, there was something about those Walnut Grove pep rallies.
Oh, for sure. Oh, for sure.
We try to foster that kind of culture where kids. A lot of it had to do with the planning and the pep rallies, but you wanted to be funny and have cool activities. But just man, making kids feel comfortable and teach them that yell for your school, be proud to be a Walnut Grove Wildcat. Just keep it safe.
I
Don't be
think
stupid.
it also takes a different level of. I was writing this. I was writing this down earlier, but to deal with middle schoolers all day, crazy. As a student leader at Stonegate, literally just yesterday, I was just like, wow, was this how I was like in eighth grade? It's like low attention span, just random learning the random stuff. It's
Yeah,
just like lots of back talking, lots of like it's just clashing and whatnot. It's just like, then even seeing Zach, the student pastor, is just like the energy he comes with every Wednesday, the
yeah,
energy you come with every day to school, which is
yeah,
it's like you have to be on something higher than yourself. You have to focus on something bigger than you for you to be able to come into the space of, okay, I'm not just here for today, I am here for these kids' future.
sure.
Because now, like, eighth grade, I was 13 years old. That was 8 years ago.
Hmm.
right? I'm now 21 years old. I'm still becoming, right? But these are impactful, fundamental things that are part of my journey. On
Yeah.
the 31st, so I've gone to 8 schools before I've gone to college, right? I went to a school called Gifted Hand. Yeah, I went to one school in Nigeria. Then I've gone to 7 schools since, coming to America and whatnot. And I used to hear kids talk about like, I went to these different schools and now I struggle to make friends and anxiety and this and that. While I look at it as like I've gone to these different schools, I've had all these impactful people, I've met all these different stories.
Yeah.
So it's just perspective. I went to this school called El Ochoa. El Ochoa is the first Hispanic woman to go to space, and El Ochoa is great. It's a STEM school.
Okay.
I've never gone to school of sports, so going to like Walnut Grove was just like, whoa. I've never played sports until I moved to Midlothian, so it's just like another different world.
Yeah.
And even I keep telling my friends that like it's this interesting bubble of like middle class kids who don't really have any real worries of or a real understanding of the world, but we're in this bubble of like cultural Christianity, this safety,
Yeah.
this like we think we know the world, we think we understand, but we don't know anything, and that's
Right.
what Midlothian is. But even then, it's such a beautiful place.
It is. It is. But the believers in the U.S. are soft.
The Bible
Uh,
Belt.
if you want to see real believers, go to Nigeria when Boko Haram is in the area. I mean, I've been there's a pastor I keep listening to, and he's like, "If they kill me, they kill me. I will give my life for Christ." Did you experience anything like that while you were there?
So where I lived in Port Harcourt, there isn't really like Boko Haram. Boko Haram is really in the north. So the north is full of more groups of Muslims. They're like Fulanis and different types of things. But I live in a place called Port Harcourt, which is like south, and there isn't really much Muslim people where I live. I live in like a I was born in this Christian bubble.
Okay.
So no, we did not. But I've
Well, I
heard of
knew.
Boko Haram since I was a child.
Wow. I knew that there was a large, Christian influence in Nigeria. I mean, Ethiopia is the same way.
Yeah.
And what's funny is, I mean, Ethiopia, or Christianity hit Ethiopia before it ever hit Europe. The Ethiopian Bible predates the King James Bible.
I mean,
So,
if you read the New Testament, there's a story of, um, is it Paul, who was ministering to Philip, who was a server for the Queen Sheba of Ethiopia at the
yeah,
time, and
yeah,
he baptized him in the name of God, and you
yeah.
see that stuff in the Bible. Even like I went to UTD, so I got to meet a bunch of like, well, most of UTD is like Arabic population and Indian population. And a lot of people from like South India are Christians or Catholic
Okay.
because of Saint Thomas was a missionary who went to South India and preached the
Right.
gospel and whatnot. And we get to see the effects of the Bible literally. Like,
So you saw the effects of that St. Thomas had in the first century.
um, uh, if you met somebody that's like from South India, most of the time they're Catholic.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
Even like I went to an Ethiopian church, funny enough, um, and the way I feel like it's very. I was raised in this Nigerian Christian bubble, right? I've gone to church my whole life. My dad's a pastor, PK, and all these different things, and I can
Yeah.
see the same similarities with like my Ethiopian friends, right? Your parents were raised in the church, you know all these things about God, but then you don't even know God yourself, right? One of my friends, she was raised Orthodox, and she goes to church, she knows all these different things, but then as you would ask her questions, whenever I first met her, she doesn't know anything about the religion she believes in and whatnot.
Yeah.
But then through, questions, through self discovery, and through like, reading this yourself,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
get to know God for yourself, which I think is much
Exactly.
needed.
Exactly. Well, did you have any specific questions for me, or you just kind of wanted to swing it? I
So
mean,
I have some specific questions, but the goal of this is just a raw conversation because I don't know. I think with conversations, no matter, I think we're dialectical learners, which means we learn through conversations. And I think
absolutely.
as we, first off, humans, we're these oral learners, right? We passed
Hmm.
on stories from generation to generation, and that's
Yeah.
how, our lives are continuing. So I remember you talked about like your upbringing when we were in eighth grade, right?
Yeah.
But that
Yeah.
was so many years ago,
Sure.
right? I
Sure.
remember certain things that led you to where you're at. So I wanted to ask about like, because I remember you said you didn't know if you were going to be a teacher or not. Then you found this, then eventually principal. So I'd like
Yeah.
to ask questions about your upbringing, your parents.
Okay.
So actually, where were you raised? Where were you born and raised? If you don't mind me
Yeah.
asking.
I was born in Dallas, and I grew up in Oak Cliff, which is
Okay.
a kind of a tough area. The neighborhood at the time was mainly working class people, and so the houses were really small. The house I grew up in was like 1,008 square feet, tiny, 2 bedroom, 1 bath, with a kitchen and a living area. Um, but my parents were working class people. My dad was a high school dropout, good man, loved me, but my mom was the first person in her entire family to ever graduate high school.
Oh wow.
So yeah, much less go to college. And so for me, it was never. If with I'm Gen X, I know you're Gen Z, but for Gen X kids, it was like we were going to college. I mean, I don't know of any kid whose parents said, "Nah, you don't have to go to college." I mean, it was just in their minds, they didn't go to college,
So
and
you
so
gotta.
for them, it was like in their mind and they were baby boomers. My parents were baby boomers, so it was like um, you're going to go to college because that guarantees you a successful life. And so I knew I was going to go. I lost my dad in the 8th grade,
Yeah, I remember you
which
telling us this.
which for me, junior high was my worst period of life, which is why I was so passionate about middle school. I had a terrible middle school experience, bad teachers, principal that didn't care to talk to anybody. Didn't take nobody took an interest in me, even when my dad died. My dad died on a Friday night, and the funeral was like on, I think, Wednesday of the next week. And I went back to school, let's say a Thursday, and I walked in English class late because I was having a hard time pulling myself together. Not one teacher, not one principal, not one coach ever said, not even the school counselor pulled me to say, "Hey, if you need anything, let me know," or "How are you doing?" So middle school for me was terrible. So I wanted to make it my mission when I decided to be an educator. I want to do middle school, and I want to make it the best experience for every kid that I can. So,
Which I
I
want to say, I'm a living testimony of that, right? I'm
well,
sorry
thank
that you
you.
had to go through that, but I literally am a living testimony of, first off, people cared, right? Warner Grove, the red, like everyone's birthday was listed out, right?
Yeah,
Inspirational quotes. You would
yeah,
literally tell every child you belong here. And
yeah,
even as a kid, I don't think you understand what it means to even belong somewhere. But the
yeah,
constant reminders of like, doesn't matter where you're coming from, red,
yeah.
yellow, blue, green,
Right,
black,
right.
whatever color you are, doesn't really matter. Like, you
Doesn't matter.
belong here.
Yeah,
And I think it's bad that, you had that experience, but that experience shaped and changed the lives of thousands of
well, thank
kids.
you. Well, thank you. I mean, God. One of the things God does best is create beauty from ashes. And so, we after my dad died, my mother had never been to a Christian school, and so my mom thought she knew I hated school. I was going to school in Red Oak for middle school. I'll just tell you where it is. Um, and that experience, she said, "I want you to try this school, but it's in Oak Cliff." And I was like, "Oak Cliff, that's where I grew up." Okay, so we went and I took the entrance test and I did fine. We toured the school and I started getting excited about going to school there. And I remember the principal talking to my mom, and my mom said that my only concern is the tuition because I'm a widow. I'd lost my husband back in April, and how much is tuition? And the principal said it was $250 a month, and back then, I mean that's like $1,000 a month now.
That's a lot of money.
I mean for a single mom, and I remember her saying, "Well, I can't afford that." And I was like, "Oh, I'm not gonna. I got to go to Red Oak High School." And I remember the principal's name was Mr. Hunt or Dr. Hunt. He said, "Well, how much can you pay, Miss Blackwell?" And I said, and my mom said, "I can afford $50 a month. I have that much extra every month." She said, "We're going to let your son come for $50 a month," and it was a life changing thing for me. So that school, I mean, first of all, we went to chapel every Thursday, and the teachers there were kind, they were friendly. The principal took an interest in me. So I really learned a lot about how school should be while I was in high school.
Mm.
Yeah. Even then, I wasn't living. I'd grown up in the church, gave my life to Christ at around 8 or 9 years old. I remember the Sunday when I went down to do it. But in high school, after ninth grade, I kind of got in with a rougher crowd, started doing things my own way, and I wasn't living for God. But I knew the truth. But I think a lot of kids do this. They think, well, I've got all these, an old fashioned saying, you got to sow your wild oats. You got to get it all out of your system before you
Uh,
can, yeah, you got to get the partying out of your system. Then you can come live for God. And so
I
that's,
feel like young men fail. I think there's a study that like most men end up taking their walk with God seriously in their late 30s,
yeah,
because it's like, okay, I have this youth, I have this energy, so
yeah,
I want to touch every girl I can, I want to
yeah,
do this,
yeah.
I want to do that, and it's like, get it out my system.
And that is just such flawed thinking. It was messed up thinking. I'm thankful that God protected me during that time. And, at around 20, wow, 20 or 21, I just had this epiphany. I was like, what are you doing? You know the truth. So I rededicated my life to Christ, and I've, lived for him since then. Since just when we were really getting in college and a lot of people were starting to party, I was like, I'm done with this.
That's good.
Really, by the time I turned 21 and could drink legally, I was like, I don't want to do that. I already did all that. So, but no, I didn't know what I wanted to study in school. I think I've shared this with you before that I just declared business as my major. I didn't know what else to declare. And I didn't like the classes. It wasn't interesting to me. I remember reading things and going, man, I really didn't understand that. Um, and so I was in business law class,
Be
and
law.
I was reading the school paper back when there were newspapers, and I was in the classified. There was a section of the paper called the classifieds, and that's where there were ads if you were selling a car, but there were job ads. And so employers were advertising jobs, and there was an ad that said Arlington Boys Club, part-time gym instructor needed, 817-460-5088.
Oh wow, you still remember the number?
That's really the phone number. If you call that number, you'll get the Boys and Girls Club now. It's changed its name, but I called Teresa Foster. She was the branch manager of the club, and she said, "Can you come in after class? Can you come in later today?" I was like, "Sure." So I interviewed. She hired me, and after about the first 2 weeks, I was like, "Man, I was made to work with young people." So I changed my major. My mom threw a fit. She's like, "You're going to be a teacher. You're going to be broke the rest of your life." And
That's what my mom would say.
yeah, but then she became supportive as she saw my grades went up. I started enjoying what I was studying, and the way I landed in Midlothian is we had to student teach. I don't know if you know what that is, but
Absolutely.
it's like an
So
internship.
in
I did
UTD,
my yeah,
in
and
UTD,
so
there's education majors, and they have to do this like year of student teaching.
yeah, there's a whole year of internship. The first semester, you just go observe classes. And I observed classes in Arlington at Bailey Junior High. I was like, cool, I like this school. So I really wanted to student teach there. And I already even had a neighborhood picked out where I might want to buy a house after I graduated and got a job and went to work there. I knew the coaches. I got to know them. And so on our student teaching application, we had to put 3 schools. And I put Bailey Junior High, Arlington first. I put Cedar Hill second, and I had to put a third district, so I put Midlothian.
Wow.
And I was so disappointed when I opened up my letter and it said, "You've been assigned to student teach at Midlothian Middle School," which is now Frank Steele Middle School.
Oh wow. Okay. Okay.
So Frank Steele was the principal there when I started. And I got to know him very well, and he was excellent. He was a great leader. He expected excellence out of everybody, including himself. He was very stern, but he was also very caring. So I learned so much from watching him that I did my student teaching, and I knew immediately, okay, this is where I'm supposed to be. But then I student taught during the fall semester, and so I graduated in December, like you. And teaching jobs then there weren't hardly any mid-year, they
That makes sense.
until May, and so I had to sub that whole second semester. But in my first contract, I signed a contract to teach at DeSoto ISD, and where my wife was already teaching. And so
Is that where y'all
I
met?
no, we met at the Christian school at Tyler Street Christian in Oak Cliff,
Oh wow.
and she had just moved down from Iowa. She's from Iowa. Her dad and mom were both educators, and they got a job at the school where I went to high school. And So that's where we met. And then after her first year, she left Tyler Street, which is the name of the school I went to, and she went to Red Oak, which is where I was living. So she was living in Red Oak, and I was living in Red Oak. We just went to different schools. So I cold called her one time.
Cold calling.
Yeah, I mean, this is not, you can't text, you can't hit them up on Instagram. I mean, you gotta be a man. You either gotta go talk to them in person,
Or
or
find
you
a
have to
number.
call them. So I called her out of the blue, and I remember all she said was, "Hey, Karina, this is Brian Blackwell." First of all, the mom answered, her mom, my mother-in-law answered the phone. I said, "Hello, ma'am, could I please speak to Karina?" And I could hear her go, "Who is this? Who is this?" And she's like, "I don't know." So I said, "Hey, Karina, this is Brian Blackwell. Just seeing what's up. What are you doing? How you doing?" And she goes, "I'm getting a perm in my hair right now, and I can't talk." And I was like, "Okay, sorry, bye." Click, like crash and burn. And so, but we got to be. I kept calling her. We got to be friends, um, and I always thought she was beautiful. And if you'd asked me when I was 17 years old, if you could marry any girl in the world, who would you marry? I would have said Karina Miller. She was a godly woman. She was a godly girl. She was a good girl. She was smart. I mean, good family. And so, God blessed me. We didn't start dating though till I was about 23 years old, and I called her for the first time. I think I was maybe 16. So,
Wow.
and God, she's, other than salvation, um, she's the greatest gift I've ever been given. So, and
That
God, God,
that is,
God has that same thing for you in His timing. So be
of
patient.
course, of course. I'm in no rush whatsoever. Yeah. I'm just trying to, let God guide me,
Yeah,
focus on the man He's called me to be, and become who He's meant for me to be. And in that time, I will be able to love somebody correctly and properly.
absolutely.
And I
And
know it takes
here's
time.
here's the great thing about you, Mitchell, is you're so far ahead of where 99.99999% of young men are at your age. They're not even thinking like that. I mean, you want that woman that's going to be that gift from God that you can cherish and honor and love and build a life with on this earth. And most dudes your age are like, "Hey, who can I sleep with tonight?"
But I told you this whenever we talked that one time. The two hearts thing destroyed my reality of whatever I wanted, because like how you said that, that's actually what stopped me from having sex.
Yeah,
Just period.
yeah,
Two hearts,
yeah,
pieces of each other go to each other,
yep,
and like when you showed the blue and the pink and whatnot, and even whenever you were telling us about your story and your wife, and
yeah.
like how that was heartbreaking for you to have that conversation with your wife, it was just like that like changed my thoughts.
Mhm.
Yeah, like
When you have sex out of marriage, I mean, it's fornication, you know that, and it's on the list that the Apostle Paul says of people who will not inherit the kingdom of God. And I love my daughter dearly, but she was raised in church, and she was raised to live for God. I prayed the sinner's prayer with her when she was 7 years old, and then right around the end of high school, start of college, she kind of walked away from that. So, not to overshare, but she's been living with boyfriend for 3 or 4 years now, and they broke up this week.
oh wow,
So that has happened.
oh wow,
There, when you have sex with someone outside of
it's
marriage,
hard.
Scripture says all of the sins a man commits are outside the body. But when you take that gift from God, that gift of sex with your wife, and you distort it, there's damage. Part of you gets damaged whenever you do that. Now you can undo that damage by giving
Life to
Christ your
God,
life
and
and
yeah,
being celibate like you're supposed to until marriage. but there's damage, and
That's
there
why
are
I try to be careful. Again, because of what you said, but also like conversations I've had with other people, right? I think even Midlothian was the first place I ever saw like kids dating, or even like a culture of like kids in relationships and whatnot, which I thought
yeah
was strange because I have these strict African parents who are like, you're not gonna date until you're not gonna date until you're married or whatever nonsense. But I do think, I mean, I had a relationship I was telling you about, and
yeah
that taught me a lot about like I am not mature, I'm pretty selfish, and there's a lot of things I need to work on and whatnot. But I think the idea of dating to marry is so confusing because I think a lot of the times most of us are not even ready to even have this place for us to even be dating in the first place. But
yeah
then we're dating to marry and we're trying to treat this person like our spouse, and we're like, we're crossing emotional boundaries, right? I want to
yeah
love you like my husband. I want to love you like my wife, right? And all these different things. But I am in no place and no reality to actually marry you at this stage, right?
yeah
And you're not in the place of reality to marry each other. So it can be very confusing. We can cross boundaries unintentionally, and that
yeah
causes deeper problems, right? And how we were talking earlier about like some most men are my age and older, just thinking about like, for lack of better words, conquest, or
yeah
like using women to as objects to glorify ourselves and whatnot. But the thing
yeah
is, like, you're hurting another person, and even more so, you're hurting yourself, but you don't even realize it, right? I had a conversation with my friends a couple months ago, and we're saying, from our conversation with our friends is like, for most women, what sex is like emotional more than it is physical. It is both
yeah
physical and emotional and spiritual, but
yeah
for men, it's more physical than it is emotional. But then you have the lasting emotional repercussions
you
later,
do you
right?
do
And
you
it's
do
like you don't realize these things until you're a little bit older. You don't realize these things until the damage is kind of done and whatnot. So I think
yeah
it's very, very dangerous to play with your heart because sex tells your brain that this person is safe, this person is this person is that, and whenever
sure
we cross these, it's to become one, right? And it's heart, it's in spirit, and it's in marriage is financial, spiritual,
yeah
emotional,
it
physical,
is
all
it
these
is
different things. And as we cross these boundaries unintentionally, it
yeah
is very dangerous.
it,
And I don't
it,
think
it
it's a bad thing, but I do think within time and within readiness, obviously you won't always know if you're ready, but I know I'm not ready. That's
yeah
just the summarized
then you
version.
if you know that, then you got to be obedient in that, and obey God, and he will, I promise you, he will direct your path, and he will give you the right one uh in his timing.
Oh, for
So
sure.
but no, we started dating when I was 23, and we got married when I was 25. And I just started teaching in Midlothian at Frank Steele Middle School, then Midlothian Middle School. And then I always I loved teaching. I like the coaching, okay, but I really love the teaching. And
Mm.
I enjoyed seeing kids come to my class who didn't like history and start to like it. I loved it when kids would stay behind after class and ask me questions about what we just studied that day. And so I loved. We got 15 minutes left here. I
Oh,
loved it. I loved it when kids showed an interest and said, "Hey, well, I really like your class." So I wanted to take that energy from my classroom, which was it was positive, and we had fun, and we learned a lot, and it was very productive. I wanted to take that school wide. So one day, we had gotten a really bad principal at the school I was at. I mean, he was terrible. I mean, he would yell at the kids over the PA for
oh,
morning
dang.
announcements. He didn't know the teachers' names. He would call teachers the wrong name. He never talked to kids. He didn't show an interest in anybody. And so I was like, man, if this guy can be a principal, I know I can. No, and so one of my teachers next door said, "You should go back to school and be a principal because you would be 1,000 times better than this guy." And I thought about it, and I was like, "Man, I'd love to take that energy and be able to take it school wide." So we went back to school. That was tough. I was teaching full time, going to school at night
Oh,
to get
wow.
my master's degree. It was exhausting. My daughter had been born; she was little. Uh, but I went back and got it done, and then went to Venus Middle School for about 2 years as assistant principal. That was my first assistant principal's job. I hated it. And I wasn't going back for year three there because the culture there was toxic. I mean,
Mm,
they saw me as the executioner. If a kid got out of line, I was going to paddle them and get them in line and yell at kids. And I was just mean. They wanted me to be the mean guy, and
which is not you from what I see.
I didn't enjoy that. And so I got an opportunity. A friend of mine became principal. You didn't know Dr. Hemley. He was at administration by the time you got to high school, but he became principal at Midlothian Middle School. And he called me and said, "Hey, I'd love for you to come back to Midlothian and be my assistant." And I was like, "Thank you, Lord." So that's when it was fun. And I worked under him for 4 years, learned even more. And by the time Walnut Grove opened, I was ready. I
Wow.
mean, I was really prepared well by Dr. Hemley, by Mr. Seal, and a few other people who poured into me. So I mean, there were guys who mentored me, just like there are guys who have poured into you. So what you've got to do as you get older is you got to pay it forward.
Absolutely.
You're already doing that right now with your eighth graders. So
Absolutely.
you're already
It's
doing it. So in Stonegate's such a great church.
I
I,
was
I,
blessed. Like I remember in eighth grade, Dylan and Connor used to invite me to Stonegate all the time, and I was like, I go to my parents' church in Grand Prairie, and I was like, ah. Then freshman year, I went to this thing called Wake Weekend, and I was
yeah,
like, whoa, I've never seen see my church. The kids are on fire for God, but they're not having fun.
yeah,
And
yeah,
these kids love God and they're having fun, and I got to have these conversations. Then all throughout high school, Zach, the now youth pastor
yeah.
guy now, Zach would oh there's probably a book in our study thing over there, but Zach would give us these books. He would have us come over to his house when we were 16, and we would read these books throughout the year. And in the summers, he'll take us on camping trips,
Hmm.
and we'll just talk about God, talk about our feelings. Zach would always make us food. I
Yeah,
think a young man needs a safe place to eat food,
yeah,
talk about his feelings, and
yeah.
just be himself, or
Sure.
whatever that means. And I think your home is that, but also it's not. You need a third space, for lack of better words, right? You need a space outside your home where you just. And I think that's currently. I think what I see from kids nowadays is they've lacked curiosity,
Yeah,
but also they lack curiosity because these things these things,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
We have
Hmm.
immediate answers instead of
Yeah,
having to do research, having to search stuff up to actually get, that thing. So,
sure.
yeah, just being able to have these spaces, and that's what I was really get. I think that's the greatest gift, though. Like, I was just talking to my professor yesterday. He was saying that you'll find favor amongst men, right? And it's
Hmm.
people noticing things about your character. It's not even I can show you my resume. My resume is mid. I don't know, average, beyond average. I don't know. I don't really have anything good on my resume, but it's just it's not about the resume. It's about the person's character that'll stand out.
That's
And
it.
somebody's gonna actually, I just want to take this young man. I want to take this young lady and just guide them. A shepherd, kind of
Yeah,
literally whatever I read to you earlier. It's
yeah.
we need guidance, right?
We
Sheep
do.
are on my church does this thing 7 days of prayer and fasting the last 7 days of the year, and one of the sermons our pastor was talking about was sheeps and goats,
Yeah,
right? There's goats and there's
yeah.
sheeps,
And we
right?
will be separated.
Oh, for sure.
I want to be a sheep. I don't want to be a goat.
I want to be a sheep because without my shepherd, I can't do anything, right? A shepherd
Mhm.
knows that if he's walking straight, the sheep are gonna follow him, right? A
Mhm.
good shepherd will have sheep that follow him, and
Exactly.
goats are gonna do whatever they want, and they're gonna this and that, and a lot of the times it's gonna make a mess. It's gonna make a mess.
Another thing about goats is sheep are pretty picky eaters about what they put in their body.
Goats put everything.
They'll eat trash. I mean, they'll eat toilet paper. I mean, they'll eat whatever. I mean, so yeah, I want to be a sheep by what I ingest into my spirit and into my body. So
Yeah,
uh, no, I want to offer this to you. I mean, I know that whenever you're looking for a job, you have to have references, and I know they want professional references, but if you need personal references, please put me down.
absolutely,
Put me down.
absolutely,
I mean,
absolutely.
I will, I'll talk to anybody and as many people as I need to. So you just kind of got to figure out what the next job. I know you're applying for things.
Yeah, I currently am applying to a bunch of jobs. I did two interviews before our like call today,
Okay.
and those were like things I didn't want to do. So I was just like, thank you for the opportunity. I don't want to waste your time, so I just want to say thank you and those type of things. I think something you said that stuck out is like, went to college for business, but you were
Yeah.
miserable, and when you
Mhm.
found that thing, my
God.
college experience, like I came to college because I want to be a doctor, right? I've always wanted to be a doctor. I thought medicine is the only way to help people, and I'm still trying to figure it out because I even asked my friend, like, I don't know if it's godly propaganda or something. I'm just seeing more signs of like, I'm at peace. If I'm gonna
Mm.
be honest with you, whatever
Sure.
decision I'm at right now, I'm at
Yeah.
peace. But I'm seeing, like, I don't know what God is doing, but I know God's gonna open doors and whatnot. But
It will.
college, these science classes, I am miserable. Mr. Blackwell, I love science in eighth grade. High school and college taught me how much I hate science.
Really?
I've done research in labs. I worked in this research lab in OU that's now like, so we're doing cancer research for nanoparticles. So we're using a laser beam to hit nanoparticles into cancer cells and break them and like to help people with cancer and whatnot. And it was cool because of the person in charge, right? It was cool because of the people I met. Science is not me. I struggled
Okay.
in chemistry.
Yeah.
Biology is like memorization, but I also hate that. I struggled in every chemistry class I took. I struggled in every science class I ever took. Um, physics was physics was fun, but then like the things I've had more fun in is philosophy, communication classes. I probably shouldn't say this, but like, I skipped a lot of class in college just to meet random people and talk to them, right?
Yeah.
And I just learned how much people facing, how much I love people and just want to be right there with the people, right? But I also know for me at the moment, it's like, okay, I know money matters, work reality matters. As a man, you have to provide. Even as
Sure.
a like right now, I have these amazing parents who've over provided, right? My parents paid for my college. My
Yeah.
parents my parents are superstars. My dad and mom, I don't know if you ever got to meet my parents, but like
I did meet your parents while you were in middle school.
they're awesome. Like
They are.
my dad still speaks highly of you.
Yeah.
So
I think highly of your parents too.
like I'm still trying to figure it out. And they're giving me grace. They're giving me grace because in the summer when I was having these conversations with my parents, I don't really feel that intro medicine. They're like they were a little bit stricter, but now they're like, Mitchell, God is gonna guide you. And like even me and my dad were praying last night, just constantly God guiding you. But I know in God guiding you is meeting people, right? God speaks through His Word. Can never
Yes, he
forget
does.
that. He speaks through people. He speaks through, He speaks in dreams, right?
Yeah.
Um, literally one of the Bible verses that like called me out a couple years ago, a while ago. People would tell me that God speaks time and time again. People would be like, God told me this, God told me that, but I never believed them, right? But if you read Job 33:14 in the I think NLT says God speaks time and time again, yet man
Yeah.
does not always hear, right?
Yeah.
Then in 14 and 15, it talks about when a man sleeps, I will begin to speak to him in dreams, right?
Yeah.
Then God speaks. God speaks.
He
That's
does.
something that God has like slapped me in the face with. What do you mean I don't speak? Like God speaks, and it's
Yeah.
just like tuning your spirit to hear the voice of God, like submitting yourself to God wherever your servant is ready to listen. Right? What Samuel
Sure.
said whenever he was in Elias's house, and he was like, "Was that you?" The second time, third time, then he said, "Your servant is ready to listen."
Yeah.
So that's my hopeful heart posture at the moment, and just God, your servant is ready to listen. I don't know what the future holds, and I'm also really enjoying this. I've interviewed like three. My goal this year, I made a list. I made a list right here of people who've impacted my life, and I don't know. You can see your name right here. Probably you can't because of the glare, but
Yeah.
I was like, I have to ask these
Well,
people
thank you.
questions and keep in contact with them throughout this year more, and just interview them because I think y'all stories are powerful, and
Yeah.
you've changed my life. And I think I post random videos on YouTube. I have like 200 subscribers, but who watches it? Who watches it? But I'm gonna watch it in the future. So yeah,
You're living in Midlothian, right?
absolutely.
We're close, so I want to have lunch with you again.
I'm
Uh,
always free for you in the
okay.
next week or something like that. Let me know when
Yeah.
you're free. We'll come have
I'm going
lunch.
to look at my calendar as soon as we wrap this up, and I'm going to send you a text with some possible times.
Beautiful. I can't wait. And thank you for this. I really, really
Wish
appreciate
I
this.
wish we had more. This is going to probably wrap up pretty soon, I
I think the
guess.
reason why it's actually wrapping up is because of the note taker. I interviewed somebody for like 2 hours and it
Oh, did
didn't
you?
like do anything. But I think it's
Okay.
the note taker. We can always keep talking. We just have to remove the note taker.
Yeah, we can do that. Do you do that or do I do that?
I can try.